Hey, welcome everyone to another week of Pepsi SWAC Game Day. I'm Tolly Carr from Atlanta, and joining us in a few minutes is going to be our guy, Charles Bishop, our ace SWAC correspondent. We'll talk to Chuck in a bit. Hey, we had a strong out-of-conference schedule last weekend, and we're bringing you highlights in just a minute. But first, we got to give a big thank you to our sponsors who make this show possible every weekend. Pepsi, official partner of the Southwestern Athletic Conference. GM, proud sponsor of the SWAC. Home Depot, proud sponsor of the SWAC. Academy Sports and Outdoors, official sporting goods and outdoor retailer of the SWAC, and Nike. We had a pivotal contest between Jackson State and Southern, and with both teams coming off of losses, there was a definitive thirst for a win on both sides. Let's go right now to the highlights. Back and forth scoring to start between Southern and Jackson State. August Petrie III from Harold Blood. That goes 64 yards, and Southern strikes first. Early second quarter, Jackson State responds. Desmond Moultrie with a 15-yard run, and the game tied at 7 apiece. JSU would score 2 more unanswered touchdowns and found themselves up 20-7 early in the third quarter. Southern made it interesting early fourth quarter with the Kendrick Rhymes touchdown, now 20-14, but the Tigers immediately respond. A 75-yard touchdown run by Andre Hunt, and Jackson State goes on to win 27-14. FAMU at the University of South Florida, opening drive. FAMU goes 6 plays, 78 yards, and Terrell Jennings has the Rattlers up 7-0. But USF responds, a heavy 17-0 run, and FAMU finds itself down 17-7 early second quarter. FAMU strings together a 9-play, 58-yard drive, and Jennings again finds the end zone. 17-14 ball game. USF would book in 2 touchdowns around a FAMU field goal to make it 31-17 by the end of the third quarter. The Rattler defense, it was stout against the USF running game and held the Bulls to well below their offensive output from week 1. Jeremy Musa's 45-yard touchdown connection to Kelvin Dean made it a 1-score game with 10 minutes to go, but USF sealed the deal with another score for the 38-24 win. Texas Southern against Toledo wasn't one to remember for TSU. The Tigers managed 1 field goal in the second quarter, but it was all Toledo. They go on to win 71-3 against TSU. Bethune-Cookman gets into the win column against Savannah State. Jovensley Bazile opens the scoring with a 13-yard touchdown. After a couple of Savannah State field goals, Bazile with a 22-yard score, making it 14-6 third quarter. The Wildcats pitch a shutout in the fourth, and they roll up a 31-6 win over the Tigers. Things were looking good for Alabama State against Miles in the first half. A pick six 70-yard return for a touchdown had the Hornets up 7 to end the first quarter. Then midway through the second, Demetrius Davis and Keyshawn Johnson connect for a 63-yard touchdown. Miles manages a touchdown just before the half to make it a 14-7 game. ASU took a 17-14 lead into the final quarter, but 2 touchdowns by Miles ends all chances for Alabama State. They fall at home 21-17. Alcorn State on the road at Stephen F. Austin. The Braves were down 15-0 before a Jarvion Howard 6-yard touchdown trims the lead to 15-7. Alcorn's field goal unit makes it a very manageable 15-10 game going into the half. Third quarter, this one hurts. Punting from their own end zone. Punter steps out of bounds. That's a safety and a free 2 points for Stephen F. Austin. Alcorn would not score in the second half, losing 38-10. Southern Heritage Classic, UAPB against Tennessee State. It was the Memphis Blues for the Golden Lions for the first 3 quarters. TSU was rolling 17-0 until Jonas Davis scores on a 4-yard run to make it 17-7. UAPB comes right back with a 7-play, 99-yard drive to make it a 17-14 ball game. Last 30 seconds, UAPB driving a potential game-tying field goal is blocked. Tennessee State returns it for a touchdown, and the Tigers win it in dramatic fashion, 24-14. Prairie View A&M at home against Abilene Christian. Prairie View gives up 3 straight touchdowns in the first quarter, putting themselves in quite the hole. Trayvon Conley on a 9-yard touchdown run makes it a 21-7 game, but Abilene Christian with 4 unanswered scores, walking away from this one, 45-16 winners. Alabama A&M hosting Lane. Bulldogs in the first quarter put up a pair of touchdowns on the board. One through the air, the other on the ground. A&M up 14-0 after one. Lane manages a touchdown on a nice 75-yard drive, 14-7 game at the half. Third quarter was the difference. Xavier Langford to Cameron Young for a 24-yard touchdown. Ryan Morrow gives Lane sorrow on a 50-yard touchdown run, and so nice, he does it twice. Not 50 yards this time, but 7 points is still the end result. Tack that on to 3 more touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Alabama A&M rolling 51-13. Grambling at LSU. The first quarter had Grambling fans on the edge of their seats. After an opening LSU score, Miles Crawley finds J.R. Waters, 7-7 ball game. LSU scores another touchdown and Grambling responds with a field goal to make it a 14-10 game at the end of the first quarter. But after that, it was literally all LSU. Grambling falls 72-10. Let's run down all the scores for you one more time. Putting a button on the week. The scoreboard is brought to you by Pepsi, official partner of the Southwestern Athletic Conference. Texas Southern takes it on the chin against Toledo. Bethune-Cookman with the 31-6 win over Savannah State. Miles comes into Montgomery with the shocker over Alabama State, 21-17. Alcorn State has problems with Stephen F. Austin for the second year in a row. New dance partner this year in the Southern Heritage Classic, Arkansas Pine Bluff. They fall to Tennessee State, 24-14. FAMU with the FCS opponent, University of South Florida. It was a close one, but the Rattlers eventually fall 38-24. And Jackson State pulling away from Southern in the second half. Prairie View A&M, they struggle with Abilene Christian. They lose that one 45-16. Alabama A&M rolling through Lane 51-13. And Grambling with the long evening in the historic matchup against LSU. Okay, let's welcome our guy to the conversation now. Chuck, we've seen the highlights, but let's properly introduce you. I mean, you're on the radio, online with Prairie View A&M on their football broadcast. We can catch you on Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We can catch you in the classroom, a professor at Texas Southern University. Does that cover it all? The almighty Charles Bishop joining us today. Chuck, man, we're coming off quite a weekend. We saw some action, and we got some teams that, man, really kind of need to get it done here in week 3. But first, let's take a look at some of your takeaways. We're going to start with the game Jackson State and Southern. There was a lot on the line, a lot of ego, a lot of, fans. They have their interests, the bands. There was a lot going on there for both teams. Both teams really needed to win in that game, Chuck.
Yeah, that was a huge win for Jackson State, especially going on the road to Baton Rouge for Southern's opener, Pete Richardson Classic, and to bounce back from the loss to FAMU with a huge win over Southern, another rival. That you don't want to call it a program-defining victory for TC Taylor since it's so early in his tenure, but it definitely put a stamp on his tenure early for TC Taylor.
And Charles, when you look at that game, that kind of gets Jackson State out of a little bit of hot water after their performance against FAMU. They're now 2-1, but for Southern University, 2 games so far and no wins coming into a game against Alabama A&M. I mean, that's like Southern fans are probably like, hey, we need to get this done.
Yeah, and it's surprising, especially when you talk about Eric Dooley coach team, a team that can put up some points. They have a lot of pieces, but thus far they've only managed 24 points on the season, and that's so uncharacteristic of an Eric Dooley coach team. I mean, going all the way back to his time at UAPB, Grambling, Prairie View, that he knows how to put points up on the board, but thus far it's been a bit of a struggle, and especially what's been concerning for me watching Southern has been the lack of a ground game. They have some talent back there in Derek Pauls and Kendrick Grimes and Kobe Dillon, but they've yet to crack over 75 yards thus far in the season on the ground.
All right, Charles, let's go over to the East Division. All right, so we got FAMU. They were out of conference against University of South Florida. Look, we had some teams that, there's no other way to say it, got blown out last week, but FAMU out of conference was pretty competitive. I know Willie Simmons is not in the business of having any moral victories, but FAMU held their own in that game, even though they didn't come away with the win.
Yeah, and it's second week in a row. FAMU started out fast. I mean, opening drive, they come down, punch South Florida in the mouth with an opening score. But I think, and he mentioned it in the press call that they're going to rue the opportunities they had, especially with regards to the turnovers and then the penalties. 5 turnovers in this game and 12 penalties. But you talk about a team that really second year in a row, FAMU has gone toe-to-toe with an FBS team, but it was the miscues that cost them in this game.
Yeah, and you like to see it when they get those hot starts and they're really competitive early on. That really does a lot for a team's confidence because every once in a while, no matter whether you're HBCU or not, no matter what conference, an FCS program can step up and knock off an FBS program from time to time.
Yeah, we've seen it happen before, especially FCS programs knocking off an FBS program. But I tell you what, this game, it probably could have turned if not for a fumble going into the end zone right before halftime. FAMU had an opportunity to cut that game to 3, and you never know how the momentum would have swung, especially in the second half. But like I said, this is the second year in a row they played an FBS team, and with the talent they have out on the field, they went toe-to-toe with an FBS team.
All right, Chuck, hang in right there. We're going to take a look at the complete schedule for this weekend coming up, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what we could see out on the field. Okay, here's that Week 3 schedule brought to you by Pepsi, official partner of the Southwestern Athletic Conference. Thursday night matchup, we kick things off. Bethune-Cookman, University of Miami on the books. Mississippi Valley State at Delta State. Grambling hosting Florida Memorial. UAPB welcomes Miles, who would love another shot at the SWAC. FAMU versus West Florida in Tally this weekend. Alcorn State at home versus McNeese State. Prairie View makes the trip to SMU. And, of course, Alabama A&M at Southern. Texas Southern travels to Rice. Jackson State goes to Texas State. So, Charles, it does not take a rocket scientist to figure out. We got a heavy out-of-conference schedule. Things kick off on Thursday night. Bethune-Cookman taking on the University of Miami. And as someone told me earlier this week, this ain't your daddy's Miami. They've kind of, they're not the Michael Irvin glory days, but they're not on that struggle plate they were on just a few years ago. They've kind of turned things around. This will be a tough matchup for Bethune-Cookman. Yeah,
very tough matchup for Bethune-Cookman. And like you mentioned, Miami, they've turned things around a little bit. Very impressive win last week over Texas A&M. But, and I think all coaches at every level will say it. They put their pants on just like we put our pants on, spot the ball, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, but those pants down in Miami, man, they're special. They got a little swag down there, man. They probably got gold belts and the whole nine.
Probably a little different pants. You're right, exactly.
But before we get into this big meat sandwich next weekend, when we really get into the conference play, when you look at this weekend, I know we talked about Southern and, their fans are probably going to be clamoring for a win against A&M. What are some other games that kind of pop out to you that you'll be keeping your eyes on for this heavy out-of-conference weekend that we have coming up in the SWAC?
Yeah, I think Alcorn versus McNeese State. That'll be a very interesting game. And again, you take a look at with regards to Alcorn, they have a very talented team. They need to get a little bit more consistent quarterback play, but they have a bunch of running backs that can really give you fits. So that's a very interesting out-of-conference matchup that I'm looking forward to watching.
All right, he is Charles Bishop. He's down in Houston when he's not in the classroom. When he's not on the air, he finds a little time to hang out with us here at Pepsi SWAC Game Day. Chuck, we appreciate your company, man, and we'll look forward to listening to you soon and having you right back here on the show next weekend.
Sure thing. Thank you, Tolly.
Let's take a look at the SWAC standings now, brought to you by GM, proud sponsor of the SWAC. Out east, you got FAMU on top, followed by Alabama State, Bethune-Cookman, Alabama A&M, Mississippi Valley State, and Jackson State 2-1, but because of that conference loss against FAMU, currently sitting in last place in the SWAC East. SWAC West breaks down like this. Prairie View A&M on top, followed by UAPB, Alcorn State, Grambling State, Southern, and Texas Southern. If you take a close look there, out west, Prairie View A&M, the only team so far with the win on the season. Now, let's hear from the coaches. It's time to break down the feelings, the reasons, the execution. We got 12 of the best coaches right here, breaking it down on Pepsi SWAC Game Day.
Xavier played well. He also ran the ball a couple of times in some crucial situations. He executed, did what he had to do. I mean, when you got a running back the rest for 191 yards, that's all you're asking the quarterback to do. We're not asking him to throw for 350 yards, 400 yards. We're not letting him throw the ball 48 times like some quarterbacks do. And you're 35 for 48, and he threw for 350 yards. Okay, he threw the ball 48 times. Okay, Xavier threw it 18, completed 14, 140 yards, whatever it was. That's what we asked him to do. That's what he did. That's what it's about. It's about balance. And we had a balanced game yesterday.
Yeah, played at home against Miles College, a D2 program. Guys came out, though. We competed hard. At the end of the day, we didn't do enough to get a W. So it's a very disappointing loss for us, especially after playing so well to week one. So now we get to see about our character a little bit, see what type of team we're going to be. The things that we worked on in the offseason that we did in the first game, we didn't continue that in the second game. Had too many penalties. Had 3 interceptions. One of them was towards the end of the game. So those are the things that really hurt us. The bright side, we did have our freshman guy started his first game, got an interception, got a pick six, ran it back for a touchdown. Did some good things on the special teams, punt return. Our kicker did a really good job, Jaden John. He had missed a couple field goals last week and came back and made one and made all his extra points. So a lot of things that we did well, but just too many mistakes, especially playing at home against a D2 opponent.
Offensively, I thought we did some great things that we didn't do against the first game. We had much more improvement in terms of execution, things that we did offensively. I thought that we made some giant steps in where we was at. Offensive-wise, defense played a solid ball game. They had 3 picks, in which offensively we didn't capitalize on either one. We got to be able to capitalize on turnovers. Of course, we didn't turn the ball over either, so that was a big plus. So overall picture, we played a good football team in Stephen F. Austin. Shows a lot of improvement from game one. And as a head coach, that's what you look for in terms of where you were at game 1 to game 2.
Against Miami, the world champs. Well, we got to go.
Yes.
Yeah, but we got to go in and do things the right way as far as mastering our 5A's alignment, assignment, adjustment, and alert, and obviously we want to win hidden yardage battle, and then we got to play sound offense and defense. It goes back to the basic techniques and fundamentals, of football. And, they have a lot of guys that could turn a negative play into a positive play. And we just got to do well with the basic fundamentals. And that's what, we're preaching, because it's a short week. You can't put in too much to have the guys thinking, they just got to play good fundamental football and don't hurt yourself.
Again, a lot of good takeaways from the game. Threw for 374 yards, had 6 sacks, 13 tackles for loss. Held a team that had over 550 yards of offense the week before to, under 330. Held them to 120 yards rushing. So again, defensively played tremendously. And offensively and special teams, left a lot to be desired. But again, the guys watch the film and they now see how capable we are of being a dominant team if we just continue to work. So again, proud of them all in all, and got to get ready for a tough West Florida team coming in this week.
They had went down and scored. I'm talking about LSU, and we were able to answer. Our offense came out and did a great job. Real good mix of our game plan that led us to a score. And so I think our guys really felt like we were in the game and doing extremely well. And if you remember, even the next drive that we had after they had scored, we got down there, had to settle for a field goal. So
I think we have a chance to be good on offense. We're just scratching the surface on how good we can be. We got to just keep chasing it every day, every week, and continue to get better.
And in my mind, we're going to score to win the game. Going to be 21-17. But obviously, they got we took a couple shots in the end zone, and they were the right plays, and they made the plays. And then we tried our field goal kicker out there, had obviously a low snap, and they ended up blocking it, and we didn't do a good job of covering it. And the score should have been 17-14. But I like to fight him in our football team. And again, as I told him, man, it's about restoring the pride. I thought we made a good jump from game 1 to game 2, but we got a long ways to go. But we're excited to get home this week, man, and look at some familiar faces and some familiar places, and hopefully this place will be rocking.
The bad thing about it is, coming off a loss, I mean, you're ready to get right back, so that's the bad part. The good thing about it is just being able to kind of rest. And, the message this week has been, these guys ready to get back out there. They're ready to get back out and play on a Saturday, but time waits for nobody, time stops for nobody, and doesn't speed up for anybody. So the question is, what are you going to do while you wait? So we just focus on just going back to just doing things the right way, as far as just kind of how we approach not games, but how we approach practice. Are we still doing the little things that it takes to be successful? So that's been the biggest thing.
We got to go into this week, against a good team, big team, fast team. We know who they are, and correct a lot of mistakes, and I think if we do that, we're going to play much better football. But again, we had a chance, we had our chances, we didn't capitalize on them, and anytime you do that, have those mistakes and turnovers, you're not going to win a game.
Fortunate for us as a team, those 2 losses hurt personally because of what you want to do, but it doesn't stop you for your goals because of the magnitude of the game. You talking about playing 2 top opponents in the conference, you always want to win. And it doesn't matter if you're playing an FBS, you still want to win. That has to be the mindset. So we got to refocus and understand that everything that we set out that we want to do, we can do. And believe it or not, that's just to go 1-0. We still can go 1-0. And I think it still puts us in a good situation. So it's going to be challenging. There's no question about that. It's not like we're facing a team that we automatically supposed to win. We're facing a good football team with an excellent coach that I believe that is a great coach. So we got our challenges, but we're going to definitely be up for the challenge.
Rice a much better team this year than what they were a few years ago. They're playing really good defense. Again, it's a step up in play for our guys going from FCS to FBS. We're playing our back-to-back FCS part of the schedule. We expect Rice to be very physical. They again, as you mentioned, beat their rival in the University of Houston, and they're playing really well right now. And in week 1, they played the University of Texas extremely well. So we're looking into going in there and competing, and Rice being very physical. It's going to be a quality game for us, and it'll let us know exactly where we are.
Very pleased with Jason's bounce back performance, no turnovers. He just went out there and managed the game well. That's all we asked him to do. We try to make sure the talent around him is on point, but he has to do some things. Basically, like I said, we're not asking you to go out there and take a game over, but, just be smart with the football and do what you're supposed to do as a quarterback. And I thought he did that. He did a good job. It was surprising to me to see him run the ball because he run like paint dry. It's slow, but he was still very effective. And, the one zone read he pulls and, gets a first down for us. The touchdown pass to Rico, for him to maneuver around in the pocket, he steps up. We've been on him about that. Breaks the pocket and he wants to run, but then he gets his eyes back downfield and gets his arm in a throwing position, rips it out there, and Rico Powers does the rest. I challenged him. Last week, I felt like he didn't play tough. And I told him that. I told him that in the game. I said, you have got to be tougher for this football team. When you get knocked down, you got to get up, and your teammates got to see it. And I think that's why he took it up on himself to, when he had those opportunities to run the ball, he ran the ball, got behind his pads, and I told him on the sideline, I said, hey, man, you got to start sliding. And he said, you never taught me that.
Finally now, our players of the week for the SWAC, named after the conclusion of last weekend's games, Alabama A&M's Ryan Morrow and his teammate Terrell Gardner, along with FAMU's Isaiah Major and Arkansas Pine Bluff's Jonas Davis. They're our SWAC football players of the week. On offense, Morrow, a key contributor for A&M's offensive unit during the Bulldogs' home opener versus Lane, 18 rushes, 191 yards, 3 touchdowns. On defense, Major, all over the field during FAMU's non-conference road outing at South Florida on Saturday. He finished the game 11 tackles, 3 tackles for a loss, and 2 sacks. Major and the Rattlers defense held the USF offense to less than 350 yards after they had over 500 plus at Western Kentucky during week 1. Newcomer of the week, Davis, put on a show during UAPB's non-conference outing versus Tennessee State at the Southern Heritage Classic. 24 carries, 167 yards, including 4 touchdowns, 3 receptions for 46 yards. He produced 8 first downs as well. Heck of a night. Our specialist, Gardner, he returned 3 punts for 95 total yards against Lane on Saturday for Alabama A&M. He contributed a long return of 69 yards, which resulted in a touchdown. They gave Alabama A&M that big lead, man, and that was the final score of the contest. Well, football season rolls on, but guys, a little overtime here, a little extra. It is volleyball season as well. Our Vaughn Wilson, our friend over at HBCU Gameday, he has a nice profile now on Brooklyn Watson. She is a big cog in that FAMU program. Let's check it out.
The Florida A&M Lady Rattler volleyball team is back in action in 2023. The 2-time defending SWAC champions are looking for the trifecta. Head coach Jokan Ilmas has reloaded the Rattlers with veteran players, and they are preparing to make another run in the SWAC. Leading the Rattlers this season will be Brooklyn Watts. The junior from Odenton, Maryland has burst onto the scene last year near the end of the FAMU regular season. She would excel especially in the SWAC tournament as an outside hitter, even though the Rattlers were touting Dominique Washington, a record-breaking hitter who earned consecutive SWAC Player of the Year and consecutive SWAC Tournament Outstanding Player honors.
You know, it's been a really crazy few weeks. We have a lot of new incoming people, whether that's incoming transfers or the new freshman class, which is not really a normal thing for FAMU. We don't really have such a big freshman class typically. So it's been a really big adjustment, but honestly, the ride has been so good so far. Everybody's willing to work hard. Everybody comes in and, you know, everybody's getting on track and seeing what the real goal is. So I think everything's going pretty smoothly so far.
With an early season out-of-conference win over the University of South Alabama Jaguars, Watts is preparing to lead her team into competition. Watts' outlook on playing has not changed much, even though she is expected to display the leadership role. She contends that her approach is similar to last season.
I kind of have the same mindset for all of my games, to go in, focus on your team, focus on other people, and then you will play good throughout the whole thing. And so that's kind of what I did. I don't think anything's really changed from last year. We have a lot of upperclassmen and like a good amount of leadership on this team already so far. So I kind of just go in and try to lead through my play, and that's, you know, what I've been doing since I got here. So I just want to settle down and figure out who we really are as a team. I think since we are all new and the whole starting lineup, it just looks completely different than last year, obviously. But I just really want to figure out who we are as a team, what we are going to be, and what type of team we are, if we're going to fight back and fight through everything, and, you know, kind of just see where we're at. And then when we get to conference play, we'll be able to just coast on through it until the tournament.
The Rattlers have a target on their backs in the SWAC, but that burden doesn't seem to affect Watts. The quiet leader she is, her effect will be seen more than is heard.
I think the biggest thing is just treating every game equally. You know, the first game, no matter who it is or who we play, go into it with the same mindset, the same amount of focus. That way we're able to go out on the court and be consistent throughout the whole year. We don't normally just take a team lightly. We've always had a target on our back, even since last year, since I first got here. So, you know, they kind of came in and they told us, like, everybody plays hard against us. And, you know, hearing that, it just shows me that we can't just take an off game. We can't take a day off of practice. We have to just push until the end. So
Well, that is now it for Pepsi SWAC Game Day. I'm Tolly Carr on behalf of Charles Bishop and our good friend Von Wilson. We'll see you guys next week.